Now, some news from the world over. On Tuesday, President Donald Trump announced that the United States is pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. In signing the presidential memorandum withdrawing from the multi-nation agreement signed in 2015, Trump said the U.S. will reinstall the highest levels of sanction on the Islamic Republic. Later in the week, the president defended his decision, saying bedlam and death follow wherever Iran is involved. He added, however, that he is open to negotiating a new deal, but said, we're going to make either a really good deal for the world or we're not going to make a deal at all, end quote. It's been a busy foreign policy week for the White House. President Trump announced Thursday that the historic summit between he and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will take place in Singapore on June 12th. Taking to Twitter, the president wrote, "We will both try to make it a very special moment for world peace." The announcement came hours after the president and first lady welcomed home in the middle of the night 3 Americans who were being held prisoner under the Kim regime. All 3 were accused of hostile and subversive acts against North Korea. Trump, looking ahead to the upcoming talks with North Korea, had this to say.
My proudest achievement will be, this is a part of it, but will be when we denuclearize that entire peninsula. This is what people have been waiting for a long time. We're starting off on a new footing. This is a wonderful thing that he released the folks early. That was a big thing, very important to me. And I really think we have a very good chance of doing something very meaningful.
Joining me now with analysis of all of this is foreign policy and national security expert and former deputy assistant to the president, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He joins me in studio. Great to see
be
you
here,
again.
Raymond.
Okay, let's start. What a big day, what a big week this has been on the international front. Those 3 detainees were released in North Korea. Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, goes and delivers them. He, of course, being criticized. He should have, where is he? He should be with the president, not out in North Korea making peace.
Shouldn't be out
what
working.
are you doing? Your take on this, the importance of this release, particularly of these 3 American detainees.
Well, one facet of it is of importance above all else, that 3 American citizens came home without 1 pallet of cash being delivered to Pyongyang. Not only that, we gave them nothing. Not 140 billion, not 30 billion, not a photo opportunity with the president, absolutely nothing. That's the Trump way. This is how you treat dictatorships. The potential for a peace deal, I still think is very low because dictators lie. But at the end of the day, to get this from the regime without giving them anything, it tells you everything you need to know about what American leadership can truly achieve.
Chuck Schumer said the other day, Donald Trump should never have made this a prerequisite to a summit, that he's bargaining with American lives. Your take?
What has the last 30 years of that kind of thinking brought us on the Korean Peninsula? For 30 years, it's literally nuclear blackmail, concession out of concession squeezed out of the West, and at the same time, what? An escalation of ballistic missile launches across our allies like Japan, and not only that, illegal detonation of nuclear warheads in violation of all international norms. Along comes the 45th President of the United States, and everything changes. That's what I say to Chuck Schumer.
I want to show you this. This is the president announcing the future for this North Korean summit. Watch.
I really think we have a very good chance of doing something very meaningful. And if anybody would have said that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even a year ago, you would have said that's not possible.
Now we know in Singapore on June 12th, the president will meet with Kim Jong-un. What do you expect from that? It seems you don't have a rosy outlook on this. Not so sure.
My parents grew up, they lived through fascist occupation and communist dictatorship. At the end of the day, the definition of a dictator is that they lie. Whether it's Hitler in Munich in 1948, whether it's Khrushchev denying the nuclear weapons he smuggled into Cuba in 1962, this is the nature of the beast. But we cannot know beforehand, before the 12th, whether he really is desperate and he realizes that the survival of his regime depends upon making true concessions. So I've always been very leery. Reagan said trust but verify. I say mistrust but verify. But if anybody can close a deal, it's Donald Trump.
Give me some sense. You were a part of some of this. It seems to my eye, from the outside, Donald Trump beautifully triangulated North Korea using Japan and China. Tell me how that happened and why they were so persuasive upon North Korea, and did they contribute to this, what we're seeing now, this summit?
With Japan, the president established a very, very close relationship on a personal level with Abe, even before the inauguration, during the transition, with phone calls, with visits. So yes, the connection was made instantly with Japan. With China, it was a little bit more difficult. Remember the Mar-a-Lago summit, much was promised. It was not delivered, and the president made his displeasure known publicly. And I think that had an effect on Beijing. But it's more than those two actors. With the president's trip to Asia, there was a far greater geopolitical play that we have determined that America is back, and reassuring everybody, whether it's Australia, whether it's Singapore, or whether it's small nations that are simply worried about the rise of China and what have you. So I think it was a 180-degree sea change. And also I must commend and doff my cap. I know the senior director for Asia at the NSC, former Marine, wonderful man. He is a true expert, speaks the language, speaks the local languages, and has the ear of the president.
Amazing. Let's move to this North Korean, the Iran nuclear deal. This Iran nuclear deal is major. The president withdrawing from it this week. Here's what he said.
America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail. We will not allow American cities to be threatened with destruction. And we will not allow a regime that chants death to America to gain access to the most deadly weapons on earth. Today's action sends a critical message. The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
How do you curtail this regime of Iran with the mullahs today without an agreement in place?
Within an hour of the president making his announcement, I wrote a piece in The Hill where I said, we have the model. The model is the North Korean, I call it the Pyongyang model. You re-establish the most stringent package of sanctions the world has ever seen. That's exactly what Nikki Haley did with Pyongyang. And you don't squeeze the country, because this isn't about Iranians. It's not about Koreans. You squeeze the elite and you make the survival of that regime economically unviable until they are forced to change behavior. When I was in the White House, the phrase we always looked for on behalf of the president was behavior modification. You don't do anything until they change their behavior, and that's what Iran has to do, and that'll be the metric. And America is the most powerful nation the world has ever seen. We can reimpose those sanctions by ourselves, and guess what? Europe will follow our lead.
I want to show you this. Nancy Pelosi, minority leader, reacting to this withdrawal from the Iran nuke deal. Watch.
President Trump's dangerous action leaves America isolated in regard to Iran. It erodes our international credibility during a critical moment with North Korea, and it recklessly puts the catastrophic threat of a nuclear-armed Iran back on the table. Democrats have no illusions about the Iranian regime. Democrats remain strongly committed to stopping the advancement of Iran's ballistic missile programs, its egregious human rights abuses in Iran, and its unacceptable support of terrorism.
She says that this destabilizes the world.
Can I tell you what defies comprehension? Giving a regime that at the time and still today is declared by the State Department, our State Department, as the biggest sponsor of state terrorism, giving that regime $150 billion. That defies comprehension. The idea that you're dealing with a murderous dictatorship and you give them everything up front and sign a deal that has no functional sanctions, which has an inspection regime where Americans are not allowed to be part of the inspections, and also doesn't allow the IAEA to even look at military sites. You're not going to build nuclear weapons at civilian sites. The whole thing was an absolute disgrace to begin with. But of course, it has to be protected because it was the only part of the Obama legacy left standing.
Rouhani, the president in Iran, is saying he was ordering Iran's Atomic Energy Agency to go ahead with the preparation of resume their enrichment plan, and they're going to push their luck here. At the same time, he says we have to abide by the agreement. Can he do both?
Look, they've been lying, and they've been in breach of the agreement since the get-go, thanks to this amazing 500 ton worth of intelligence that was done by Prime Minister Netanyahu 2 weeks ago. We know that it was all done in bad faith. The Ahmad nuclear weapons program simply went underground, and they've been developing, their capabilities and getting billions of dollars for the last 3 years.
And what many people don't realize, they've been able to renew all of their sales to Europe and around the world in the process, which means billions of more dollars are flowing into their economy. Now, with this action, the president imposing sanctions on the sale of oil, it will give our European allies 90 to 180 days to sever those ties. So this is really hitting our relationship with the European Union. How will it affect that? Does that imperil some of the other negotiations we are in the midst of?
It will lead to a very simple question being asked and answered by our European friends. Do they wish to maintain relations with a theocratic dictatorship? Is it worth endangering their relationship with their biggest trading partner, America, to keep a dictatorial regime in place? I would ask these people, whether it's Siemens, whether it's whoever it is, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, would you have done the same with Hitler? Would you have done the same with the Soviet Union? If not, why are you doing it with Iran?
You saw the statement from Macron, Angela Merkel, Theresa May, our three biggest allies in Europe. They all say they're standing by the Iran agreement and, quote, this is a binding international legal framework for the resolution of the dispute. They claim this could imperil the United States and put it in violation of the Security Council agreement. You would say what?
I would say it is not a binding agreement because it was never a resolution of the United Nations Security Council. That's absolutely absurd. It was as valuable and as legally binding as that piece of paper Chamberlain waved when he came back from Munich in 1938. It's a chimera. It's an illusion.
Tell me about what we're seeing in the Middle East. In the wake of this withdrawal, Iran began to flex its muscles a bit in Syria, where it has strongholds, sending nukes toward or missiles toward Israel. Israel retaliated this week. What's happening there? And is the withdrawal from the Iran nuke deal to blame for that action?
They had to do something. Iran had to rattle a rusty saber. But the most important aspect that everybody's missing is that within hours of Iran taking these actions from Syrian territory, Assad's government disavowed these actions and said, we had nothing to do with this, we were not in the chain of command, and we had no knowledge Iran was doing this. That's a turn up for the books. When Assad, the dictator, is actually angry and disavowing his largest sponsor for these actions, the jigsaw puzzle may be coming apart in that part of the world to the benefit of America and Israel.
Walk people through it, because again, we pay very little attention to international affairs. People, they read headlines and they move on. What Donald Trump did in Saudi Arabia, give me a sense of what dividends that is now paying and what he established there by engaging in the heart of the Middle East, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
I encourage your viewers, Raymond, for the purposes of posterity, read the Riyadh speech by the president and the Warsaw speech. These are the two most historic speeches the president has yet to give, and I think they will go down as potentially his most important speeches. In Warsaw, he reaffirmed the Judeo-Christian character of our nation and that we stand by any country that shares those values. In Riyadh, he was the catalyst. He said to the assembled 53 Arab Muslim heads of state, gentlemen, you have a problem and you have to solve it. He literally said you must rout the extremists from your places of worship and the terrorists from your communities. What happened? The whole geopolitical structure of the Middle East changed. There was a tectonic shift whereby today, think of this, Raymond, today one of the closest allies of Israel is Saudi Arabia. That's the effect that Donald Trump has had on the region.
And they and Iran have always been at odds.
Yes.
This deepened that divide.
There is a new constellation of allies in the Middle East that can finally bring stability and that are coming together to push against this theocratic dictatorial regime that wishes to export their model of caliphate. ISIS had their Sunni extremist model. That's now absolutely gone, thanks to America. Now the challenge that is left is the Shia version of the caliphate that they've been trying to export from Yemen to Iraq for years now.
Tell me for a moment about Gina Haspel. She had her hearing this week on Capitol Hill, the nominee for head of the CIA. She has been attacked by a number of senators, Kamala Harris comes to mind, for her unwillingness to condemn waterboarding and enhanced interrogation as an immoral act. Your thoughts on that and the prospects for her nomination?
She'll get confirmed, but what we saw yesterday is truly outrageous. Everybody who was trying to lambaste her and question a 30-plus year veteran of the intelligence community was trying to criticize her for executing methods and using techniques that they had approved of. Let's not forget, after 9/11, the senators and congressmen on Capitol Hill were petrified. After the anthrax attack, they were scared for their own lives, and they said, oh, enhance interrogation, whatever we have to do. And the most dastardly aspect of this is that this woman has been going to Congress for months now as acting head of the CIA. Nobody batted an eyelid. They respected her. They treated her as the acting head. Oh, and suddenly, now that I want to be the Democrat candidate for president, now I'm going to do a 180 and start attacking her. The only problem with Gina Haspel, Raymond, is that she's a woman who's going to be made the first ever female director of the CIA under Donald Trump. That's her sin.
Let's leave it there. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, always a pleasure. Thank you for being here. And the new book, Why We Fight by Dr. Gorka, is available for pre-order now. It comes out this summer. You don't want to miss that. And, of course, his Defeating Jihad is available at bookstores everywhere and online.